Good afternoon. Welcome back. It's good to see you all. I declare open this fourth meeting of the second regular session 2017 of the Executive Board of UNDP, UNFPA and UNOPS. We're here to discuss, we have for the UNDP segment, item 5 on the agenda, the evaluation of UNDP strategic plan, global and regional programs for the period 2014-17, and management response, documents DP/2017/32 and DP/2017/33 respectively. This is part of the long process we have been through, and it's going to be very interesting. As you all know, this is a huge evaluation, quite impressive work, and it's been very well timed as an input to our discussions on the strategic plan, as also was reflected in many of the comments yesterday, and not least also in the comments of the administrator, Mr. Achim Steiner. But I think it's good that we still have possibility to look into the evaluation as such on its own rights and look at it and get some lessons there. So I will give the floor to Mr. Indra Naidu, Director, Independent Evaluation Office, to introduce the evaluation, and after that we will hear the management response from UNDP before we open the floor. So, Mr. Naidu, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished board members and colleagues. It is my pleasure to present to you this afternoon the evaluation of the UNDP strategic plan and global and regional programs conducted by the Independent Evaluation Office. The report covers the current 2014 to 2017 strategic plan cycle. The evaluation team sought evidence of whether UNDP is achieving intended outcomes under the strategic plan and whether the strategic plan, global program and regional programs are serving as effective tools for organizing and guiding UNDP programming and activities. It covers and was undertaken during a time of significant challenges, restructuring and reorganization efforts. Our intention to undertake this evaluation was indicated to you already in January 2014, as we proposed an evaluation plan for the current cycle. Its purpose was to respond to IEO's unique mandate to report directly to the Executive Board, a modality further cemented by the subsequent 2016 evaluation policy. From our side, it was also intentionally timed to your discussion of the next UNDP strategic plan. As a validation of the IEO's mandate and ability to address issues that affect UNDP leadership and strategy as a whole, it is with considerable gratitude that I acknowledge the richness and sincerity of attention already given to the evaluation. In terms of the management response provided, the several instances of the administrator's reference, as well as the interests and reactions of the Executive Board President and membership, and at this formal session and an earlier informal meeting. This evaluation was carried out by senior IEO evaluators. Joined on the podium to my left is the IEO Deputy Director, Mr. Ariel Hug. The IEO team whom I wish to introduce are Mr. Alan Fox, Ms. Vijaya Vadivelu, and Ms. Ana Rosa Soares. I also wish to acknowledge the Director of the Office of Audit and Investigations, Mr. Helg Ostweiten, for his collaboration on the joint institutional assessment of UNDP, a first such effort reported to you in June, and which forms an important background to this evaluation. Also, I wish to recognize members of the IEO Evaluation Advisory Panel who helped to oversee the work, Ray Rist, Elliot Stern, and Thomas Schwantz. As the most comprehensive assessment of UNDP work, the evaluation used evidence obtained from document reviews, meta-analysis of evaluations and audits, regional and country case study missions, interviews, focus groups, and surveys. In total, documentary evidence was supplemented by over 1,000 interviews with staff and stakeholders at headquarters, as well as 90 other locations around the globe. Triangulating among multiple perspectives and evidential sources, we came to judgment on the balance of UNDP performance in a number of areas. What follows is only a very brief and select summary of the report findings, conclusions, and recommendations set out through the three main areas of work for the organization. sustainable development pathways, governance and resilience, as well as cross-cutting issues of gender and partnerships. UNDP was well positioned to provide support as countries accelerated their efforts to meet the 2015 end date for the MDGs and prepare for the Sustainable Development Goals. At this early juncture in the SDGs, UNDP has made a promising start through the MAPS program, which assists countries to harmonize the SDGs with national planning priorities. Our recommendation is that assisting countries with the SDGs should be a cross-cutting priority for all UNDP country offices. UNDP states that its overarching objective is to help the poorest of the poor and most marginalized populations. However, whilst evidence suggests that UNDP has embedded a multidimensional perspective of poverty across national and global debates, we note concerns that UNDP sometimes settles too easily for small-scale livelihood interventions that may not be sustainable. UNDP has managed over 1/3 of the GEF projects and a similar percentage of projects under the new Green Climate Fund. It is through environmental services that UNDP works most directly at the community level, especially through its management of the GEF Small Grants Program. The evaluation acknowledges UNDP achievements in assisting countries to promote greater energy efficiency and more sustainable energy production, with special attention to poor and rural communities. UNDP has in many countries been an important service provider of democratic governance and public administration support, helping to solidify peaceful and resilient state-society relations. It is the area of work where UNDP raises and expends about half of its resources, primarily to help strengthen basic services as well as accountability, the rule of law, electoral systems, and peace building. While UNDP is well positioned to promote governance reforms, it can do more to push for inclusive and accountable processes, and we recommend that UNDP be more proactive in supporting sectoral governance approaches and more persuasive in promoting democratic governance reforms. The evaluation calls attention to the work of UNDP to help governments improve their civil service processes, especially countries that have been in crisis. Governance support needs to be targeted to critical government functions that are essential to stability. UNDP should be more strategically support Sustainable Development Goal 16 and related intergovernmental agreements on peace building and state building. Resilience forms the third main area of work for the organization, and its internal organization of support for disaster risk reduction was restructured during this period, in effect dissolving a well-recognized Crisis Prevention and Recovery Bureau. Nevertheless, the UNDP Crisis Response Unit has been effective at deploying staff and consultant resource, and at quickly releasing initial funding to get recovery programs moving. Disaster risk reduction is an area that has important synergies with the rapidly expanding UNDP climate change adaptation support to countries. The evaluation identifies cash for work programs as interventions that often receive too much attention in early recovery engagements, displacing prevention, planning, and coordination efforts. We recommend that UNDP retain resilience as a distinct area of work under the plan. With respect to gender, the evaluation focuses especially on UNDP's effort to implement its gender equality strategy and its contribution to women's empowerment through support to partner governments. The evaluation notes some weaknesses, such as limitations in the implementation of the UNDP gender equality strategy, both in terms of providing resources to support gender programming and in mainstreaming gender equality across UNDP program areas. Work on gender equality and women's empowerment should not be confined to a gender team alone, but should ensure that there is specific gender expertise also associated with programmatic areas such as environment, energy, and crisis response, where gender mainstreaming remains weak. During the past 4 years, UNDP has clarified its corporate structure and defined more precisely its operational approaches to South-South and triangular cooperation. The UNDP role as administrative agent for the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation is acknowledged in the report, along with recent improvements made to the office's planning and management. Challenges remain in the mainstreaming of South-South cooperation in country-level programming, and UNDP has yet to prioritize thematic areas where South-South exchanges will be pursued more systematically. The evaluation analyzed the contribution of the 5th Global Program and the 5 regional programs. The Global Program fulfills an important policy support function that has enabled UNDP to maintain intellectual engagement in the global development area by participating in major international events and channeling country-level lessons to global agreements. Yet we also consider the program's results framework and indicators to be excessive as they cover the breadth of UNDP work under the strategic plan, including country-level results. We view the global program more as a funding line to support staff positions for achieving corporate-wide results rather than a distinct global program, and consequently recommend that UNDP change the global program into a service line for supporting staff positions at global and regional levels. With respect to regional programs, we note the challenges faced by the teams during the major restructuring, including shifting personnel from headquarters to the regional hubs, and with 3 of the regional hubs changing countries. The regional programs have variably expanded support for new approaches and innovative solutions and promoted sub-regional programming. But in some regions, too many country-related activities overlap with country office program. We recommend that UNDP reassess the roles and financial sustainability of the regional hubs, striving to make them centers of excellence for innovation and learning while expanding cooperation and partnerships with regional institutions. In terms of institutional effectiveness, we found, building on our earlier joint assessment, that there are signs of improvement in terms of higher quality programming, openness, agility, and adaptability, but these have had limited impact on harnessing knowledge, solutions, and expertise to improve results and institutional effectiveness, as envisaged in the Strat Plan. To better promote a results culture, UNDP leadership should encourage an environment that welcomes critical reflection and continuous organizational learning for improved results and institutional effectiveness. Beyond reporting for compliance and capturing best practices, the focus should be on using lessons learned to harness knowledge, solutions, and expertise to improve results and effectiveness. In building this culture, UNDP should also improve transparency and communication at the most senior levels of the organization to encourage and further improve openness and engagement. The evaluation recommends that UNDP increase the involvement of the Office of Human Resources in strategic decision-making. Given the growing complexity of program delivery, interagency work in collaboration with a range of partners, including civil society, we recommend that investment in developing skills in leadership, relationship management, and management across complex systems should be prioritized. Although UNDP is now a leaner and more cost-conscious organization, there has been insufficient progress on results-based budgeting, and the financial sustainability of the organization is challenged by diminishing regular resources, inadequate funding models, and exchange rate losses. We recommend that UNDP transition from political budgeting to a more risk and results-based budgeting and management approach, more effectively linking results to resources. This will help mobilize funds and better highlight investment gaps to donors. UNDP is being held accountable to a corporate strategic plan without predictable and adequate resources. Distinguished board members and colleagues, thank you for this opportunity to set out for you the key provisions of the evaluation and our recommendations to management. I look forward to your comments and questions following presentation of the management response. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Naidu. Mr. Marty, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Pedersen, the President of our Executive Board, distinguished members of the Executive Board. I'm pleased to present today UNDP's management response to the evaluation of the Strategic Plan, Global Program, and Regional Programs. Let me at the outset thank my colleagues, Assistant Secretaries General Jessica Fayette and Susan McDade for their presence here today, and BPPS Deputy Director Sarah Poole and Development Impact Group Director Simona Marinescu for their support in this presentation. On behalf of senior management, I would like to thank Director Indran Naidu and the evaluation task team for the remarkable effort made in the conduct of this broad exercise and for the thorough set of recommendations given to us at a time the new strategic plan is being formulated. I'd like to note that UNDP management has no hesitation whatsoever in agreeing overall with the evaluation findings, with the conclusions and recommendations, as we really find the report substantive, relevant and timely. We also note and appreciate in particular the comprehensive approach to data and evidence collection underpinning this evaluation. Let me briefly flag what I see as some of the critical overarching findings and conclusions that are particularly relevant in informing our work going forward. We are almost in the last beats, at the edge of the completion of the work that was mandated by the current strategic plan and by the current global and 5 regional programs. UNDP's best elements of performance during these 4 years is described as follows along 3 key issues: stronger alignment, better quality programming, and effective engagement with partners, which helped the organization to advance delivery despite the increasingly constrained resource environment. In short, we worked in a less dispersed and ad hoc manner. We focused more, as the board had been asking us over the past years. We operated in a more disciplined way, obtained some deeper impact, mostly thanks to very strategic partnerships, operating with others rather than in isolation, and with higher financial effectiveness in a tighter fiscal framework where value for money was of paramount importance. We focused in particular on SDG implementation and worked with the UN Development System. I would dare to say we led the UN Development System on the MAPS approach, supporting over 100 member states with mainstreaming, acceleration, and policy support in these initial years of Agenda 2030. We also adopted social and environmental standards and safeguards ahead of the rest of the UN system, leading to early accreditation to the Green Climate Fund, and have been a key implementing partner of the Global Environment Facility with, just a figure, 3.1 billion grant investment, which UNDP helped disburse and implement in 143 countries. As reflected in the evaluation, UNDP's contribution to poverty reduction remained central to all programs and projects, including through close engagement with civil society and the private sector, which is, after all, the main job creation engine in our economies. It is true, as the Director of Evaluation has noted, that at times small scale has been a limitation, often the result of small funding. The overall balance is, however, in our opinion, quite positive. We're also pleased to receive a solid recognition of UNDP's contribution to effective governance, including through support to improved public administration and civil service, citizens' participation, accountability, rule of law, national human rights institutions, electoral systems, peace-building efforts, and basic service delivery. We also very much welcome the evaluation's conclusion that consolidation of support to conflict prevention, governance and peace building under one unit has enabled a more integrated and holistic approach to building peace and preventing conflict. This work is now completely separated, as several of you member states had asked us, from a functional perspective, from climate vulnerability, disaster risk reduction and prevention of climatologic catastrophic events. Referring to the areas reviewed in the evaluation regarding UNDP's cross-cutting programming principles and approaches that enable sustainable impact, we agree with the evaluation that while UNDP's work on gender equality and women's empowerment has been extensive, mainstreaming and financial targeting challenges still persist. We recognize that while contributions were made to building institutional processes to prevent sexual and gender-based violence, mostly legislation, institutions, courts, strengthening of police force, and so forth, the level of support is far from being sufficient. Regarding South-South and triangular cooperation, we welcome the evaluation finding that the newly adopted South-South cooperation strategy filled a fundamental policy gap, and agree that challenges remain in mainstreaming, prioritization and effective use of South-South cooperation in the pursuit of 2030 agenda. It is not systematic enough in our work. UNDP's financial and operational support to and collaboration with the UN Office for South-South Cooperation were also well noted. The evaluation found promising our efforts to build partnerships for development with the private sector, a daunting task that has often resisted the best of our efforts. Over the last years, UNDP enforced its due diligence policy and risk assessment process to both safeguard integrity and enable meaningful engagements in public-private partnerships. Regarding the global and regional programs, which are part of this evaluation, we note the recognition of their effective role in positioning UNDP as a development thought leader through global and regional dialogues, development research, and policy consultation, and in seizing opportunities to strengthen the organization's long-term relevance and competitiveness at the regional and global levels. Credit goes in this regard to our regional bureaus, to our regional centers, to the member states and their own regional organizations who have been kind enough to partner with us. Management would also like to thank the Independent Evaluation Office for reviewing the performance of the 5 regional programs together in a first, as this has produced findings that are useful both to individual regional bureaus and to UNDP as a whole at the corporate level. Let me finally turn to the recommendations. In the interest of time, I will respond by grouping them around the key topics they relate to. First, UNDP agrees with recommendations number 1, 2, and 3, advising UNDP to pursue integrated approaches to development and preserve a global reach, resources, and programming to leave no one behind. We will assist member states in developing their integrated national financing frameworks linking planning, budgeting, partnerships, and resource mobilization, the famous from funding to financing, in line with the Addis Ababa Action Agenda and other global instruments. And we will continue assisting localization of the SDGs through the MAPS approach, together with our sister agencies in the development group. With respect to future thematic engagements, UNDP management agrees with recommendation 4 to promote climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction linkages, and recommendation 7 to continue to refine the roles and scope of service of the Bureau for Policy and Program Support, BPPS, and the Crisis Response Unit crew. We take note of recommendations 5 and 6 on promoting democratic governance reforms and Goal 16 related intergovernmental agreements on peace building and state building. In response to requests from national governments, UNDP will identify entry points and realign programmatic support in democratic governance, taking a development approach to conflict prevention. UNDP will continue to engage in international networks on fragility, peace building, and state building, apply core government function diagnostic frameworks in fragile and conflict-affected countries, and commit to strengthen the coherence of its crisis prevention response and recovery by revisiting its approach to early recovery coordination in light of the QCPR and the new ways of working. We also agree with recommendation 8 on strengthening the implementation of our gender policies, taking measures to ensure adequate funding to mainstream gender across all programming areas. We will place emphasis on strengthening partnerships with UN Women and other UN partners to deliver gender results across all programming areas. We do find recommendation 9 very pertinent. It refers to taking a more systematic approach to South-South cooperation, selecting specific areas and partners for expanded work together, in particular, of course, with the development system and hosting the UN Office for South-South cooperation. We finally take note of recommendations 10 and 12 related to treating the global program as a service line and reassessing the roles and sustainability of regional hubs. We agree with recommendation 13 to develop regional programs as frameworks, outlining the regional issues to be addressed and approaches to be followed. To this end, UNDP will further clarify the relevance and role of programmatic instruments, including the global program in line with the new strategic plan, and we will also explore the interesting idea of a certain push towards simplification by converting the current global program into a service line as one of intelligent options going forward. Recommendations 11, 14, 15, and 16 suggest that we should determine our specialties within our core areas of work, promote a results culture that encourages innovation and critical reflection and learning, increase the involvement of the Office of Human Resources in strategic decision-making, and transition from political budgeting to more risks and results-based budgeting process. We do agree with those recommendations. I would like to conclude by again thanking the IEO for conducting a thorough and useful evaluation, the result of which is already helping, as you have heard our administrator yesterday, design the strategic plan that shall guide our work over the next 4 years. We are confident that through the key actions we committed to in the management response, UNDP will continue to improve its effectiveness and meet the expectations of all our partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martinez Soliman, for